Hey guys, Greg here on the Vinyl Rundown, Saturday morning. Quick video for you. Here's a bunch of records I'm going to show you, and let me tell you why. So, this is a dual-purpose video. Big stack of records to show you from a record store I was just at a couple days ago, and then Rob Walker is running a contest, and he was nice enough to reach out to me directly on my channel and asked me to invite me to enter his contest. And at first I was like, well, you know, his contest, 5 random records of no particular theme. I had no idea what records to pull for those. But then I found myself driving around beach communities of California the other day in Redondo Beach, and found a record store that was pretty cool, Dudley's Vintage Vinyl, I think it's called. Anytime you're driving around California and you're in a new town, good idea to pull up the Google or the Yelp and see if there's any record stores around. So I found this place called Dudley's Vintage Vinyl. Pretty cool store. The owner was really nice. Was hanging around talking to people for a long time. And I was in kind of a rush because I had already been on the road doing business meetings all day. Hadn't eaten or used any facilities in many hours, and had to get on the 405 before traffic got crazy. So I felt like I was kind of rushed going through his store. But let me go through the 5 or 6 records that I grabbed. But let me also say again, thanks to Rob Walker. Congratulations to him for hitting, I guess it was 100 subscribers when he started this. He seems to be like about the exact same age as me, because he likes a lot of the stuff that was popular when I was in college, and pretty much every record he's shown on his channel my wife has in her collection. If you don't know, those are hers over there, these are mine over here. That half is hers, these half are mine, more or less. When we got married, we merged our beautiful collections together in holy matrimony. Anyway, let me start with the first record. This is actually the most interesting and longest story of everything I've got here. Robert Fripp, Exposure from 1979. First, let me mention, in this store, he had a big clearance section, and it said all clearance records $1 to $5 as marked. So this is $4, and you can see the covers beat up, and it looks like it's been bent and stepped on. But the vinyl looked pretty good in the store. It looked like VG vinyl, no scratches. So let me tell you the story of this record real quick. Robert Fripp, guitar player from King Crimson. And after he left King Crimson, moved to New York and got into all this sort of more, experimental stuff. So this record is a good showcase of his so-called Frippertronics guitar style. Back in the olden days, before they had digital technology, to get a delay effect, he would actually have to stick 2 giant reel-to-reel tape decks together, wire them together, put the tape going from A to B, and make that repeat loopy sound that he got very famous for, working with Brian Eno and David Bowie. So this record has some of that stuff on it, but this record is kind of inconsistent in a good way. There's a lot of different material on here and a lot of different players on here. Let me give you the story of this record as Robert Fripp himself mentioned in the liner notes here. There's a little quick story from Robert, and he's kind of complaining about something that happened. This album was originally conceived as the 3rd record of a trilogy with Daryl Hall's solo album called Sacred Songs and Peter Gabriel 2, both of which I, Fripp, produced and contributed to. But with the non-release of Sacred Songs and the delay by the dinosaurs of this album, it is now impossible to convey the sense which I had originally intended. So this album was supposed to be part of a trilogy, 3 records that he produced, one with Brian Eno, that makes sense. Did I say Brian Eno? Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel. But I didn't know he was collaborating with Daryl Hall. Daryl Hall and John Oates, who actually sings on this record. A couple songs, but then some of his vocals were kind of deleted or replaced with a female singer. And then, but Daryl Hall had done this whole album with Fripp called Sacred Songs, which is sort of sacred, kind of into this satanic Aleister Crowley BS stuff. I don't really know that record. The record label did not want to release that because it was so far from the commercial pop stuff that Daryl Hall was making the companies a lot of money for. So they did eventually release it a few years later. But if any of you know that record, Sacred Songs, check it out. I mean, tell me about it because I don't know what it's all about. Anyway, so Daryl Hall sings on here, but then Peter Gabriel sings on here also. My favorite song on here is actually a Peter Gabriel song called something about a flood. Of course, I can't see it now with my glasses. Don't tell me. Hold on. Here Comes the Flood. Kind of a soft ballad with piano, Peter Gabriel singing, and then some Frippertronic guitar weirdness. Okay, so this is listed at $4, and I thought, okay, it's probably a $10 to $15 record if it was in good shape, but the cover's beat up. $4, that sounds reasonable. The vinyl looks good. Until I got it home, and then I wasn't too happy because, can we see it on here? It's so hard to see. There's a problem on this record, a big problem. Here it is, you can barely see it. This record is cracked. There is a almost 1-inch crack going out from the edge into the first song. So the first song on both sides, big thump. I don't even want to play it on my nice turntables because I'm afraid it's going to rip the needle right off. And so is this marked down to $4 because it's cracked? No, it's really, it would be worth $4 or $5 if it wasn't cracked. The fact that it's cracked, it's really worth $0, and he probably shouldn't have sold it. He probably should have marked cracked vinyl. It actually plays okay on my really cheap, crappy turntable. The plasticky AT LP60 Audio Technica type turntable. But I can't really play the first song on either side on my good turntable, so that's disappointing. Anybody want to trade me for this? I don't know, maybe like a pack of chewed gum or a rotten apple, something like that. Good record. I may have to buy another copy, but I actually don't think Mr. Dudley knew that it was cracked because he seems like a nice, honest guy, and his records appear to be well priced for what they are. Let me go through the others a little quicker. Julian Lennon, I think this is his first solo album, came out in '84, I think, when I was working at the record store. I used to listen to this all the time. And the thing is, hey, this sounds a lot like John Lennon. Not totally, but there's a very similar quality in his voice. So when I was in the store, what I often do is pull up Discogs, the software on my phone. And this was on my wife's want list, so 2 of the records I got today are for my wife. Isn't that nice of me? I think so. Here's the other one for my wife. Marshall Crenshaw. She already has this on CD, but I saw it on vinyl in the clearance section. She was appalled that I spent $5 on a record for her. Pretty cool that a wife wants you to spend less money on her instead of more. Marshall Crenshaw, kind of poppy, super poppy. There's a connection between him and Buddy Holly. He actually played Buddy Holly in the movie La Bamba, which is the Richie Valens story. And there's a lot of similarity between his sort of innocent, poppy, fun-loving songwriting. He also played John Lennon in Beatlemania. This guy's a really good songwriter. He probably deserves more credit than he's gotten. He had one song that was a hit song, Someday, Someway, not on here. But it's a good record. I listened to it. Sounds alright. Alright, this record, Cat Stevens, Catch Bull at 4. I actually saw this on another VC guy's channel the other day, and he gave it a nice review. And I thought, okay, I'll keep my eye out for it. And I actually found 2 copies of it in the clearance section, and I picked the one that was in better shape. $3. 2 or 3 songs on here that I like. I've only listened to it once, so I'll give it a another listen. But Cat Stevens, early 70s, I think it's 72. Let's see if I can tell real quick. I don't know. Anyway, a lot of Cat Stevens stuff is just acoustic guitar, but this has kind of a full band on it, so it's a more fuller sound. If you like Cat Stevens or you want to know more about Cat Stevens, have you seen the movie Harold and Maude? He did all the music to that, one of my favorite movies of all time. But that was not really made into a soundtrack per se. Okay, who else do we have? Who else? Who? Coincidence. I just said that. Who by Numbers, with kind of a, not my favorite cover. It's actually a hand drawing by bass player John Entwistle. And I guess you could connect the dots, but you ruined the cover. And $5 is pretty good for a Who album. It's got a split seam. No big deal. I'll glue that together. The cover is pretty filthy. $5 for a classic Who album is not a bad deal. It's got Slip Kid and Squeeze Box, two of my favorite Who songs. But this is kind of later Who stuff. A lot of people don't probably think of this as the classic essential Who, but I like the tunes on here. Good deal for $5. And last one, are we at 5 records or 6 records? I don't even know. It's at least 5. This is the only record I got that was not in the clearance section at this record store. Beyond the Blue Horizon by George Benson. And I've been talking a lot in the last month or so about this CTI record label. CTI, Creed Taylor, classic legendary jazz producer, created his own label. George Benson, nice photo. So I'm more familiar with George Benson's later stuff, sort of the very smooth, mellow, jazzy stuff that very kind of popular poppy jazz where he sings. But he did have sort of a more conventional jazz guitar player career. And this is kind of a almost a transition between the two. So this is, well, let's put it this way. CTI, I think, is distributed by A&M Records, right? Does it say that on here? I don't know. Anyway, George Benson was hired by A&M Records in the late 60s because A&M lost their biggest guitar player, Wes Montgomery, who just suddenly died. I think it was in his mid-40s. And so George Benson was brought in to kind of bolster their collection. And I think it took George a while to get into the groove, and those are big shoes to fill. But then George went into sort of a more commercially popular-y guitar stuff. This has So What, the Miles Davis song on it, and a bunch of other songs I haven't heard of, but it does have Ron Carter, great bass player, Jack DeJohnette, one of my all-time favorite drummers, and other people I'm not familiar with. So anyway, guys, that is, I think, 5 records. And please subscribe to this channel and also subscribe to Rob Walker. And let me know what you think of the video. Leave some comments. And thank you for watching. Have a good one.